the more years I live, the more I'm also coming to learn more and more and more that Jesus was just not only a man of sorrows acquainted with grief, but a man of laughter and lightheartedness. But I stumbled across a picture recently that I saw that kind of summarizes my whole faith journey and reminded me of some things. It's this picture of a little boy, a little blonde-haired boy. And there's a statue of Jesus sitting on a park bench, kind of leaned over, and a crown of thorns on his head, so you can tell it's Jesus. And there's this picture of this little beautiful blonde-haired little boy going over and hugging Jesus. I love it. I think the little boy was trying to comfort Jesus, saying, hey, Jesus, life doesn't have to be that hard. But I think there's something also in that little boy, at least I saw it for me, kind of my story, is that in that man of sorrows, this little boy found a comfort, found someone who understands. That's my whole theology. The little boy clinging to Jesus, going and hugging him because he knows God loves, God knows, God cares, God understands, and God is present. I've known that all my life, even before I knew anything else. I knew that God loved me, that God knows me and knew what was going on, that God cares in the midst of it all, that God understands, and God is with me. And somehow that gave me hope that I carry to this day. So that's the God for me, who understands suffering. I'm learning how to live more in love, lightheartedness, and light. But boy, when we have our times, right? We have our moments to know that God understands suffering and pain and sorrow. Oh, what a comfort. At least it has been for me. And it reminded me all of a quote. That's the God for me. I think it's by John Stott, and I'll share it with you. He says, I could never myself believe in a God if it were not for the cross. The only God I believe in is the one Nietzsche ridiculed as God on the cross. In the real world of pain, how could one worship a God who was immune to it? I have entered many Buddhist temples in different Asian countries and stood respectfully before the statue of the Buddha, his legs crossed, arms folded, eyes closed, the ghost of a smile playing round his mouth, a remote look on his face, detached from the agonies of the world. But each time after a while, I have had to turn away. And in imagination, I've turned instead to that lonely, twisted, tortured figure on the cross, nails through his hands and feet, back lacerated, limbs wrenched, brow bleeding from thorn pricks, mouth dry and intolerably thirsty, plunged in God-forsaken darkness. That is the God for me. He laid aside his immunity to pain. He entered our world of flesh, blood, tears, and death. God understands, right? He suffered for us. Our sufferings become more manageable in light of his. There's still a question mark against human suffering, but over it we boldly stamp another mark, the cross that symbolizes divine suffering. The cross of Christ is God's only self-justification in such a world as ours. That's the God for me who understands suffering, sorrow, pain. So may you know this God who understands. May you know this God who gets it. May that comfort your heart in some way. It does mine. And may you know this God who holds you. Remember that passage in Isaiah 41:10? He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms, that's it, and carries them close to his heart. What a picture. What a truth. What a comfort. So may you know this God who holds you. May you hold on to this God who is always holding you. May we be just like that little boy in that picture, holding on to Jesus. Take what's helpful, leave the rest. And until next time, may you live all the days of your life.